Okay, perfect. Introduce myself. So we're having a small bit of technical difficulty here. For some reason, I'm unable to hear on the other side, but I've been informed that I can be heard, so that's good. So I'm getting my questions from the chat box. My name is Owen Ryan, and I'm 24 years old, and I'm from Kildare. I am currently a student, a master's student at Maynooth University, and I'm studying international development, as I have a keen passion in social justice. And in addition to that, I am a very strong advocate for mental health, in particular men's mental health and well-being. So I've been asked to join today, which I am very thankful for, and I'm hoping to be able to share some thoughts on mental health and well-being, from the perspective of a young person, which is more important than ever at the moment, especially given the current global pandemic we're all um, battling through. Um, so yeah, you'll have to bear with us, and I'll wait for my questions in the chat box. What is mental health well-being mean to you? For me, I think the most important thing for me is just taking some time to check in with yourself often, because the world we live in today is always, the way I describe it to myself is, we're like on a conveyor belt constantly, where we're going from school to college to relationships to jobs to everything's just go 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 go, move forward, move forward, move forward. If you're not moving forward, you're seen as a failure, either within your own eyes or from your peers or society. So for me, mental well-being is about just taking some time to pause, reflect, creating a safe space for yourself where you can do that either on your own or with other people. Um, and that can come in so many different ways. But I'll stop on that now, because I'll end up rambling. Sexually well-being mean to me? Um, I suppose that's a more difficult question. I suppose for me, it's about being comfortable in your own skin. Um, no matter what way you're feeling. So, I mean, for anyone that, no, let's start from here. I find, when you're in school, um, everyone goes through puberty. Teenage years are really a really tough period for everyone. Everyone's trying to discover who they are. They're trying to find their own identities. A lot of the time you won't actually know, for years usually, until you come to your 20s and you start to read more and understand more about the world and yourself. Um, and for me, it's about, again, it's very connected to the mental well-being. It's about taking time for yourself, to just process and reflect, read, talk, find these safe environments for you to connect with other people who may be going through similar issues as yourself, similar struggles, or just having similar thoughts. It can be very difficult when you're young to find spaces like this, because everybody feels a bit on edge, because if someone brings up a certain topic, it's always this issue: is someone going to laugh at me? Is somebody, because everybody's insecure. But I think the most important thing is, just take some time for yourself, think about it, talk about it, read about it, and reach out for help if it's something that you're really struggling with. What's taking up the most of my headspace, work or family? Ooh, that's that's a good question. I would say at the moment, right now in this exact moment, the thing that's taken up most of my headspace is my dissertation research for my masters. I'm actually I'm actually focusing on looking at our young people of ethnic minority in Ireland engaging with youth services, and yeah, investigating the experiences there to see are the youth services in Ireland actually providing tailored supports, and if they are, what are they, and if they're not, how can we better provide youth support for young people of ethnic minority in Ireland. And for anyone who may not know what ethnic minority means, it means anyone from, you know, the Black community, Asian community, traveller community, like anyone basically that isn't white Irish, because white Irish makes up something like 85% of the population of Ireland. So a lot of the time policies and things are usually shaped towards the majority rather than the minority. So I think it's really important for us to make sure that nobody's left behind. So in terms of headspace, that's taken up a lot of my a lot of my thoughts and focus at the moment, and will do for the entire summer. I think it's important as well to recognise that I currently live at home at the moment. So I had actually been living in Zambia pre-COVID. I was over there doing some voluntary work for 6 months, and I actually arrived home in the middle of the pandemic. I had to cut short the time I was there because the world was shutting down. So I last year towards the end of March 2020, it was a very difficult time for me because I was experiencing what's called reverse culture shock. So when you go out of your country to overseas, it doesn't have to be Africa, it doesn't have to be a voluntary experience. You could literally be just going to Germany. The thing is that we have a thing that's culture shock, which is adjusting to a new surroundings, and then we have a thing called reverse culture shock, which means when you have adapted to a new surrounding and then you have to come back and re-immerse in your own country. So what was happening with me is I was battling through this reverse culture shock situation, in addition to the global pandemic, which at the time nobody knew what it was, how severe it was. All we knew that we had to just get home and be safe. So when I got home, I arrived home to my family home for the first time in 3 years or something like this. I had moved out prior to moving to Zambia, so it was a very tense, I would say, at least 6 to 8 months at the beginning, trying to readjust to a family environment I hadn't been in with all my younger siblings, my parents, and for me, finding coping mechanisms throughout that period to, I would say, just to survive each day was really important for me. And by really focusing on it and grabbing it and not ignoring it, it allowed me to kind of get my thoughts in a good place to enable me then to apply to take on a master's in September 2020, which I wouldn't have been able to do for sure if I hadn't have, ironed out a lot of issues going on in my head when I arrived home last year. Of course, some things still surface because the whole experience, coming back home, COVID in general, it's all a blur for a lot of us. So it's not easy. But yeah, they're some of the things that are on my head at the moment, and there's some of the things I've been dealing with over the last year and a half, which I think is really important to share. Why do we need to talk about mental health illness? Talking about mental health helps improve our communities by making it more acceptable for those suffering from mental health illness to seek help, learn to cope, and get on the road. In addition, mental health isn't just about mental, isn't it? It's also about maintaining a positive state of well-being. Do you agree? Yes, I would agree. I think it's really important to talk about mental health, because there's always a stigma around the idea of if we're talking, then we're viewed as a weak person, especially as men. I find that women can talk more openly and freely, although there's different barriers there for them. I find a lot of the time it's a social stigma for men that if you're seen to talk about your emotions or confront them, then you're viewed as a weak person or somebody that's not macho enough, things like this, when in actual fact it shouldn't be like that at all, because emotional intelligence is actually a really powerful thing. If you can understand your own emotions, you know exactly how to channel those in the right moments. You know how to, well, you really know yourself. And I find that when you know yourself best and know how to deal with yourself, because we're all completely unique people, there is no one size fit all sort of formula for this. you do have to sit down and take some time for yourself and do some reflection and talk it out. And it can be a difficult process, but it definitely just stand. Maintaining a positive state of well-being is so important. As I've mentioned, this idea of the world where we're constantly thrown onto a conveyor belt, constantly going. Sometimes it's very easy to kind of just get lost in what our purpose is in life, why we're here, what we actually want to do. And we end up in situations where we maybe work in a job we don't like, we feel like we're trapped, we can never get out. We're in a relationship that we don't like, we feel like we're trapped, we can't get out. If we just take some time to process for ourselves, reach out to people if we need help, I think it can be not only positive for ourselves, but it can be positive for the people around us. Our friends, family, everyone wants the best for us. Our communities want the best for us. Our country wants the best for us. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to take control over that. We need to stand up for ourselves first and reach out for help. Sometimes with mental illness or mental well-being, it's very hard sometimes to see if somebody is suffering or if they're not okay. And it can be sometimes usually the person that's the most happiest in the group that could actually be suffering, because when they come out, they have to be seen to be always happy. So sometimes a powerful thing you can do is just ask somebody how they are. Just stop for 2 seconds and ask them how they are. And if they just say, like most Irish people do, I'm grand, don't worry about it, I'm fine, don't stop there. Just ask them again. You don't seem okay. Your body language doesn't tell me you're okay. And then proceed. Most times people will then continue because they know that you're genuinely interested, that you're not just going to, push the conversation away. Why does talking about mental illness help? Help sexual well-being and youth. Can you rephrase that question again? I'm not quite following it. Why does talking about mental health illness so it's two separate questions. Why does talking about mental illness help? Well, for me, to be totally honest, like talk therapy works a lot. So as I said, when I returned home last year, I was in a very difficult situation where I'd be quite close with my family, and I, would have no problem speaking to my parents or brothers, whoever it may be, about certain things. But because I was dealing with something that was very personal and unique to me, like for example, living in rural Zambia, for 6 months, it was an experience that nobody here could connect with or understand how I was feeling. In addition, there's absolutely nobody here that understood how COVID was affecting anyone, because we were all drained, and reaching out to somebody for me felt like I was draining resources that they needed themselves. So for me, what I had to do is I had to reach out for counselling, and by doing that, it provided a safe space, 1 hour each week, where even if I was struggling each day, I could talk about whatever was on my mind in a safe environment and know that this person is impartial. They don't know me, they don't know my situation. I actually did it by phone call, because at the beginning of the pandemic, you couldn't actually meet face to face. So I used to just go for a walk, pop my earphones in, and I used to just talk while I was on the phone, as if I was talking to a friend or a family member, whoever it was. And I did that for 6 months, on and off. I got through periods where, I thought I was fine. I moved on. I didn't go back. And those were the hardest periods, because I realized actually I wasn't finished. I still had a lot more to go through. So I think talking is a really powerful thing, because the expression, like, a problem shared is a problem halved, it's true, because once it's off your chest, okay, that's no longer in my head anymore. Someone else knows about it. So at least if you're struggling, you can go to them straight away without having to re-explain yourself all the time. So that's why that's really important. Second one, we have mental health and we have mental illness. So again, do you want the second question, if you want to rephrase for me? The difference between mental health and mental illness. Okay. So mental illness is referring to, people who may suffer with depression, schizophrenia. There's a lot more terms that I don't know off the top of my head, but mental health is just about looking after ourselves in our day-to-day. Health illness are known to leave victims feeling out of place and disconnected from reality. Yeah, okay. So mental health is just checking in on ourselves and making sure that we're okay. Giving ourselves some space for reflection, and basically using that as our first line of defense so that mental illness doesn't, come as a result. So what happens is a lot of the time is, and especially with men, we tend to suppress our emotions for months, years, whatever it may be. So we push them down so far that it leads to additional issues down the line, which is what we're talking here, mental health illnesses, which is like the depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, that can also be solved through talk therapy, but they may also require medication prescribed obviously from a GP. When you're feeling disconnected from reality, yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't have any experiences myself from being in a situation where I suffer from mental health illness. I definitely think that without the supports of family and friends, and also counselling service, and using that as like a first response to intercept when I needed it, like taking those steps myself to talk, it prevented me from down the road ending up in a position where I became mentally ill, where in that case, for example, people who suffer with anxiety, they may be so afraid to even get out of bed. They may be completely drained because all they do is think or overthink so that they can't sleep at night, which obviously impacts their next day, which means if they're a student, if they're a worker, they can't go, they're not focused. People just think they're lazy, people are judging, but it's underlying things that are bringing them down. And at that point, you go and speak to a doctor. The doctor will be able to tell you whether it's something that, some counseling sessions, just some talking with someone will help, or whether you need some additional supports, and whether it's medication or whatever. But the GP will usually be best with them diagnoses. In addition, though, if you wanted to reach out to counseling services, you can talk these things out too. Everyone is unique and everyone will take a different path. There is no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no right or wrong way of doing it. But the most important thing is, if you're not feeling okay in yourself, reach out and talk to someone. If it's not family or friends, reach out to a professional in private, or go to your GP to discuss. Why do you think men don't talk about their state of mind? I would say one of the main reasons I think in this country men don't talk about their state of mind, their well-being, is because I think there's a real stigma around, and one of the things is this term called macho culture, which basically means that, we have to be big, strong, tough men all of the time, and it very much relates to this idea of gender roles. And without getting too deep into gender roles, because there's a very specific conversation in itself, but the idea that when we're born, that the male will be given the blue color and the girl is given the pink color, and then for the rest of our life, society dictates and tells us who we should be and who we shouldn't be, and how we should feel and how we should behave. And so it kind of starts, depending on which society you're born into, whether it's in Ireland, whether it's in a different country, that can have a big impact on how you interact with that society, interact with your friends, family around you. And sometimes, if you don't have a supportive network around you to, I suppose, express yourself the way you need to express, or show you the different ways to express yourself, then it can be very difficult to just fall into the same narrative that has been created for you as a guy, which you need to be on the local GAA team playing sport, and if you're not doing that, or oh my god, this person's, he's doing acting or he's dancing, that's not seen as a male thing to do. So there must be, must be something wrong with him. All of this stuff, it's all, for me, it lights a fire inside me when I hear these kind of discussions happen, or I just not even, you see it happening. There's so many issues where, especially in school, and I use school as a really important example, because I find that in secondary school, we with the idea of puberty and adolescence and trying to discover so many things, and we're trying to protect ourselves and survive in an environment where there's bullies, there's popular people, there's unpopular people, there's different people, and you just don't see the world outside that small little bubble. And from that moment, you're just trying to protect yourself. So when you come out of the world, and it doesn't matter, it's not about whether you go to college or not, whether you enter the workforce, whatever you do after school, the world is opened up to you. And the way I describe it is, you will find your tribe if you keep looking for them. Sometimes it can be more difficult than others, depending on how you're feeling, and you might change your tribe all the time. Because you're constantly evolving as a person. The more you read, the more you interact with people, the more you talk, you will find people. I think the hardest thing sometimes is when you're not feeling like you're fitting into the bubble that's around you. You feel like there's nobody going to be there for me. There's nobody that's going to understand how I feel or how I see the world. But it's not the truth. You just have to keep pushing. You keep finding. I find social media as a really good tool nowadays for just following certain pages, following certain people who inspire you and educate you. On the other side, it's really important, talking about mental health and mental well-being, to limit your time on social media, because that can have also adverse effects on how you're thinking when you're just embedded all day, every day, watching TikTok videos or aimlessly scrolling through. I'm not even going to say Facebook, because I hope nobody's on Facebook anymore. There's nothing happening there. But scrolling through Instagram, liking pictures, or then you're judging yourself as to, oh, I've posted a new photo, nobody's looking at my photos, no one's giving me enough likes. Last week I got 100 likes, this week I got 20. What's happening? Body shaming yourself, all these things. But I think I'm going off topic now, so I'll stop. Is there another question? Sexual well-being and youth. I'm within the topic. So, as in, when you're saying sexual well-being and youth, are you talking about, safe sex? And oh yeah, okay, just talking with teens about sex make a difference? Oh, I think so. I'm actually involved. I'm an adult leader in a youth group in Nace, which is in Kildare. And a couple of weeks ago we had a talk. Well, we have a talk all the time, but we got professional in to have a talk with the teenagers, who are in TY. They're like 14, 15, 16, and around these ages. And I was so blown away that when they were given the platform to speak openly about all things sexual health and well-being, the amount of questions that were just there. There was no embarrassment. There was no, I'm not going to ask this question. Yeah, okay, sometimes there's a bit of giddiness because everyone's like, oh my God, someone's talking about whatever. But I think providing a platform to talk about sex is really important. An issue with Ireland is that, the majority of our schools, I could be wrong here, but I know it's in 90% plus, are still run and operated by the Catholic Church. So when we're talking about sexual education, we're talking within a school environment, in an institution, within a very small framework. So, outside, talking about safe sex is really important, because a main issue with sex, and when talking about it when it's teenagers or young people, is that we're not actually explained to explore it beyond, oh, a boy and a girl has sex, they make a baby, that's kind of it. It's more than that, it's bigger. And I think it's really important that at a younger age, if we talk about it and discuss it, then we have a bit more understanding about ourselves, but also about the other person, whether it's female or male, and understand about boundaries, consent, and understanding that yeah, I mean, sex just doesn't have to be about whatever, having sex, and we just did that, and if I don't have sex, then I'm outside. You don't have to, it's just built up as a really big stigma around safe sex and perception of what sexual being mean to youth between 18 and 35. Again, shifting out of school then, 18 to 35, yeah, I feel like even when leaving school, like when people start into college, like I still think there's lots of people like in their early 20s that still aren't fully sure of, what sex means to them. It's not just penetration, it's not just two people getting together for that. There's so much more to it. And I think the more we don't talk about it, the more, it's not even the more we don't talk about it, it's men that's not talking about it. But when we don't talk about it, then what happens is we're just trying to think of sex in terms of, oh, how many girls can I have sex with while I'm in college, or all these sort of ridiculous things. You're looking at numbers, you're looking at statistics, you're not actually enjoying the or appreciating what it's meant to be or what it's about. And it's all about men's health, well-being. Yeah, consent. Consent is so important. I mean, again, this is why it's so important to be talking about this stuff at an earlier age with people, because consent goes as far as you can literally be in the middle of the act of having sex, and someone says, I want to stop, and you should be 100% able to say no problem and stop what you're doing. It doesn't mean that once somebody texts you and says, yeah, let's go for it, and it's a week in advance, and but they've said yes, anyone can change, and somebody's decision over their own body can change within a second. And the really important thing, and this is where it does link into mental health and well-being, I find as guys, we're not, because we don't talk about our emotions enough, because we don't handle them, because we don't deal with them, what happens is we get really angry when someone says something like that. You think, oh well, oh, they're after saying no. I'm after going back with this girl, we're going to have sex, now they just say no. So now I have to go back out to all my peers and tell them, oh, that didn't work out. Everyone starts joking, they laugh, blah, 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 blah. So it's about more conversations, providing spaces as well for young people to have these conversations in safe environments, to rule out all that joking and slagging and all these kind of things and giddiness, to say, look, this is serious and it's really important, because you need to appreciate boundaries, whether someone is setting them themselves for their own body, and then also for you as well, because consent goes both ways. If you don't have to feel like, if you're in that position that you need to have sex as well, you can also say, I'm out, I don't want to do that. And it shouldn't feel like a social stigma that if you say, I didn't want to have sex and I walked home, that you shouldn't have to be harassed then by your male peers about that. But that's an issue, that is definitely an issue. I'm sure even today, I'm sure if there's young people out there, they definitely agree that yeah. We have talked about mental health, mental illness, sexual well-being, consent. What is your message to the youth in all this area? My message is, I think we need to, first of all, I think we need to talk more. We definitely need to talk more. We also need to be more empathetic and compassionate. And by that, I mean, we need to be understanding. We need to be willing to listen to people. If somebody is expressing themselves, we need to be respectful to what they're saying. Everyone's voice matters, and something that's important to them may not be important to you, but you should still listen, and you should definitely try to help and support them whatever way you can. I do think that the expression of problem shared as a problem halved is really, really important, and it definitely does help. It helps me a lot. In addition, I also journal a lot. I also write, because sometimes when you're struggling and you're trying to make sense of your own thoughts, if you talk it out to somebody else, you may feel bad about it because you may just want to express something and you don't want someone to take it in a different way. So sometimes writing about it can actually help, because not only does it help you articulate your thought in your own head and think about what it is you're actually trying to say, it makes it easier for you when you actually do want to go talk to somebody else, to explain to them how you're feeling, and it makes it their job easier than to help you try find support. So yeah, my message is be kind to each other. The world is tough enough as it is out there. Go easy on yourselves and go easy on each other. That's my message. When do young people start questioning their sexuality? That is, I mean, I would go as far to say as from when a child, maybe from 5th or 6th class, at the end of primary school, they could start questioning that early. I wouldn't be an expert in knowing the exact parameters of that or the age, but I would be aware that it can happen very, very early. Although the young person may not be able to articulate in words and speak about it or understand what's actually happening, they could be very aware from it, from an early age. And that's in relation to the LGBTQI plus. I'm sure they would be a better people to ask in regards to this, in terms of giving from their own experience. It would be very, very helpful to share. But I will be aware that this is a struggle that happens, and this is why I would say that in school, and I keep going back to school because it's such a difficult environment for people when people are trying to discover and figure out a lot of things about themselves. Bullying happens a lot of the time when people who are different or may come across different are just trying to survive and exist in an environment that they don't want to be in. So they don't need other people making comments or snide remarks or bullying them. So my advice here is, if you're questioning your sexuality, that is completely normal. There is, reach out, talk to someone, read. The internet is great for finding out information and feeling like you're connected to someone. So don't feel alone. Follow pages on social media. You'll definitely find people that are, as I say, your tribe. And for those who feel the need to make comments about people, just don't. You're struggling too. I know that. Just stick with it, and just leave other people alone, basically. As I say, the world is difficult enough without pointing fingers at other people and what they're doing and what they're struggling with. Do I ever question my sexuality? I'm trying to think back. As of right now, no, I'm very comfortable in my own sexuality. I'm a straight male, and I know that. Maybe in my teenage years, I would have, and early 20s as well. I mean, I'm still in my early 20s. I'm 24. I'm making myself feel so old. I think what comes hand in hand, and a lot of my female friends would probably agree with this because I've definitely talked to them about this a lot. And this is actually something, actually, now that I say that, I surround myself with I have a lot of close female friends. As a guy, I think it's really, really important, actually, because it's actually a safe space for me to express myself and talk without being judged. So I actually encourage that. If anyone thinks that surrounding themselves by guy friends all the time is a good thing, I mean, it's good to have your guy friends, but the female friends are very open in hearing what you have to say, and very respectful and compassionate to it. So it's really nice. But yeah, in terms of sexuality, of course, then as a young person, when you're not seeing any of your other male peers talking the same way you're talking or willing to address emotions or deal with that, it can be very difficult, because you start to think, maybe this is linked with, is it because these kind of terms are thrown around, like, you must be, in quotation marks, gay because you're expressing your feelings or whatever. which is absolutely ridiculous. And I'll shut that out now. That's why I put it in quotation marks. But them comments are made, and that can really get into your head as a young person. It can really, when you're battling with so many other things, you think you're doing the right thing, trying to address your emotions, but when comments like that are being made, it can be very, very difficult then to kind of know, oh, where do I stand here? So yeah, there probably was some time there questioning about that somewhere along the line, because of that reason. And I've definitely had them conversations with my female friends, even in recent years, and even in the last couple of months, about that, and reflecting backwards to kind of say that was a difficult time for me, where right now I completely own my emotions, in terms of I am absolutely proud of my ability to control my emotions and own them, and because it allows me to connect with other people on a deeper level, and it actually becomes a very big strength, actually, and it brings a level of confidence that I know others may not have, because they haven't taken the time to reflect and really just dig into their own thoughts, and reach out for help and talk about it. So yeah, that's yeah. What's the purpose of sexual health? To provide accurate information about sexual health, or to help learners become more comfortable talking about and asking questions about sex. To provide information. Sexual health. I would say the purpose is both. So I think it's really important to provide accurate information about sexual health. That is really important. There, you know, we shouldn't be hiding any information, first of all. And whatever information is available, whatever latest research is available, that should be shared with young people from a young age. As soon as kids will be sexually active, which can happen at, it can be from a very young age, from 12 years up. Although there's so many other different laws around consent and how old someone should be. From the time somebody is in secondary school, that's when they'll begin to think about it as they're going through puberty. So it's really important to provide accurate information about sexual health, and then let people build on that themselves. They'll do their additional reading, but give them a good base. And yeah, like I think you provide information. Information is one thing. Fact sheets and leaflets and flyers, that's one thing. I think it's really important to provide safe spaces to hold conversations, whether it's allowing young people to create videos about stuff, whether it's just to having a fun session where you just bring up some of these topics that people may get a bit giddy about because they're in school or they're young and they just think, oh, this is really funny. But no, bring it into an environment where people can have a joke and a laugh and fun, but then it can get really serious, and you can just openly express how you're feeling about certain things. Sometimes that can be difficult because someone may not want to share what they're experiencing. But even private channels, ways to ask questions, safe spaces to ask questions about certain things. Like right now, for example, I've have no problem telling you about anything I could possibly help someone with. Although I'm not an expert in everything, I'm trying my best. I think it's really important to provide situations where young people can ask questions about whatever it may be that's on their mind, to adults who should hopefully be able to support them, and provide some advice and guidance. Yeah. Would you like to give a message to your dad and to young men? Oh, I tell my dad is a big inspiration to me in terms of addressing emotions and embracing life from a very compassionate way. Growing up, my dad would not be afraid to express his own emotions, or embrace me with a hug when he's excited about something or proud. And it's something that definitely forms the person I am today and allows me to build upon. So I'm incredibly thankful for that. He knows that. If I keep going, I'll probably start crying on the call, which is again, there's no problem being having a good cry every now and again, an outburst. But yeah, a message to my dad: thanks for everything you do. I really appreciate it, and I most certainly wouldn't be here having a talk about anything mental health or well-being without the foundations that you laid. So, and what I would say, using this point as well, if for any young men out there, you don't have, I'm not going to say not have a supportive father, but if you have someone that you know that you don't connect with, you can't have an open conversation with, or your dad is someone that a tough, strong man, or whatever it may be, it's okay. Don't feel lost, or don't feel you can't talk to someone else. You'll find somebody else that you can talk to. It doesn't mean that your dad doesn't love you. It doesn't mean that your dad doesn't care about you. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. It's just different generational situations where people are brought up. As I said at the beginning, we're brought up in societies where we're assigned roles as to who we should be and how we should be seen. It's not as easy sometimes for men who are supposed to be big macho to then, start to express their emotions. That's why we tend to have a lot of, in Ireland, we go to talk to our mothers about emotional stuff rather than our dads, because our dads needs to be the strong face. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I do hope in this generation and for the next generations that begins to change. And I'm sure it's already started to change. Yeah, no problem. Thanks very much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I do hope that whatever I've spoken about here, I hope it's been helpful to somebody out there. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck with the second session. And yeah, thanks very much. Hi, I'm joining Afro and Diaspora Centre today in creating needed awareness on men's health, well-being, supported by their initiative, Time with Wise Men. My name is Owen Ryan, and I am 24 years old, and I'm from Kildare Town. I'm currently studying a Masters in International Development at Maynooth University, as I have a keen interest in social justice, particularly breaking down complex terms in order for both ordinary citizens and young people to be able to engage with development issues, not just on a global scale but also locally here in Ireland. And in addition to that, I'm also an advocate for mental health, and in particular men's mental health and well-being. So today I hope to be able to share some of my own experiences dealing with mental health issues and some struggles and some coping mechanisms that help me get through those struggles. So yeah, that's all for now. A short introduction, and I hope to speak to you all soon.
Hey there, so I'll be joining Afro in Diaspora Center in discussing creating the needed awareness on men's health and well-being in the initiative called Time with Wise Men. See you there.
Hello everyone, today I'm joining Afro in Diaspora Center, and I'm supporting men's health well-being. I'm very much happy that you have created this initiative, Time with Wise Men, and this is a very great initiative. I'm Mohammad Fawad Nouri, International Fashion Professional, Assistant Professor in JIT University, and Creative Designer for Global Sustainable Fashion Week. I'm also Academy of Art and Design International Faculty Coordinator, and I'm an international professional doing fashion designing, creative attitude, and I'm very much happy that I'm the part of this initiative, and I wish you all the very best of luck. Thank you for giving me opportunity, and best wishes to all wise men.